All right, folks, you guys are watching NFL Daily. Tom Downey there, Cam Rogers right here. Let's go through the breakout players for every single NFL team, Tom.
Yes.
So
you're all getting covered today.
Define breakout player for the folks.
So this is not a rookie. Those don't count because you have to have something to base your past year on. Now, guys that come back from injury can be accepted there, but normally it's a young guy that takes that next step forward from good player to great player or great player to elite player.
Let's go to New England and talk about Wise here, defensive end, and the Patriots need to improve upon their pass rush. He could be a big reason
why. He only played about 52% of his snaps last year. Was a seventh rounder in a fourth rounder in 2017. Out of Arkansas, 5 sacks last year. I think that with New England, you kind of look at their depth chart overall at defensive end and edge rusher. They really don't have enough. Now, maybe Derek Rivers can take a step forward and help become that guy for them. Maybe it's something along the lines of Adrian Claiborne becomes Cowboys Adrian Claiborne, but Trey Flowers was the guy last year. Wise had 5 sacks, and then it's a bunch of linebackers who were kind of blitz specialists last year. So I think that Wise is in line to take that next step forward, and I think the Patriots can get the most out of him. He showed some real promise last year, Cam. So I liked what I saw. Hopefully, for Patriots fans at least, he becomes that next key edge rusher because they need somebody that can draw attention. I don't know if there's really a guy on that roster right now that actually does that.
Okay, all right. Well, the front seven for New England will certainly be worth watching.
It's a big question mark for me.
Yeah. Let's go to Miami now. And with the Dolphins no longer having the services of Jarvis Landry, all eyes are now on DeVante Parker.
We mentioned this before the show, you and I, when we were talking. And DeVante Parker kind of falls into this year's the year for Parker.
I swear.
This is the year Parker breaks out. He's been constantly hurt. Last year was supposed to be the year, all right, because he had a decent showing in 2016, and then his receptions went up by 1, his yards and TDs dropped. Now, partially, I think that's because their quarterback play was pretty darn bad last year, which is a potential excuse. But at a certain point, if Parker doesn't show it this year, I don't think he's part of Miami's long-term plans anymore. I think that they'll look to move on from him because, he's a first-round pick, but he hasn't produced in the way that you need him to. With Landry gone, there are a lot of targets to be replaced. Parker has to step up. Even though they did bring in Amendola and Wilson, they're banking on Parker to truly be that team's #1 wide receiver. And so far, he hasn't shown it.
I think Miami, by the way, Tom, is in full-on potential blow-it-up mode if they just fall flat on their face this year. They might blow it all up.
I think that they kind of already started to.
Yeah, well, they're resetting or culture changing, if you will, but I don't know. I mean, they're in a position where they could be really bad this year. But, I mean, they brought in pieces. They brought in Josh Sitton. They brought in guys to be a better team.
But they weren't as good pieces as the ones that they lost. So maybe the chemistry is a big factor there and the culture change helps, but I'm just worried that the overall marks will continue to go in the wrong way for Miami.
All right, DeVante Parker is there. Let's take a look at the Jets now and Jamal Adams. I like him a lot in that safety position. Good player.
I think this is the year he goes from a very good player into a great player. Because I love Jamal Adams coming out of LSU. He showed some great promise last year. And frankly, Cam, low-key, this is a pretty good Jets secondary. Now, I'm not a big fan of Buster Screen, but Adams and May are a talented 1-2 punch safety, even though May needs some development there. Johnson and Claiborne have shown flashes, although they are inconsistent at times. I'm a big fan of Perry Nickerson. J.J. Wilcox is a good backup safety. Robinson could maybe develop finally for the Jets after a stint with the 49ers. So this is a good secondary, and Jamal Adams is the focal point of the entire thing.
No doubt. Good-looking secondary, all things considered, for the Jets. They tried to improve it.
But yeah, they paid a lot of money to Jermaine Johnson this year.
Yeah, they did. And they re-signed Claiborne as well. All right, so those are the Jets, and zoning in on Jamal Adams there. Let's take a look at the Buffalo Bills. A lot of question marks on that offensive line. They lost 3 core pieces: Eric Wood, Cordy Glenn, and Incognito. So how about Dion Dawkins?
Well, they felt good about moving Cordy Glenn because of the way Dion Dawkins fared down the stretch. He's a little iffy early on in the season, but then he took over in Week 10 as the full-time starter and didn't allow a sack. Now, again, a mobile quarterback does help that, but that's a very promising sign for Dawkins, and I think he's going to take that next step forward to a young player with promise into, hey, this is easily our best offensive lineman. And frankly, Cam, you and I have mentioned this before on NFL Dailies. This offensive line, I don't like it.
The best player is probably Dukas, and I'm puking as I say that.
Ryan Groy has shown some ability. I've never been a big fan of Jordan Mills. You got John Miller. Maybe Wyatt Teller can surpass him there. again, there could be some shuffling there. You could put Groy at guard and put Bodine in, but I don't think Bodine's any good.
Marshall Newhouse, by the way.
He's awful.
They picked him up.
Look, I'll tell Bills fans what I've told Raiders fans in the past about Marshall Newhouse and Giants fans. He's not any good. And the same thing about Bodine. He was a disaster for the Bengals. If he starts, you've got problems.
Look out.
He was so bad.
All right, Dion Dawkins there with the Buffalo Bills.
You cannot find a single Bengals fan to say anything positive about Bodine. No one likes him in Cincinnati.
And that's why he's no longer there.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the NFC East and start with the Dallas Cowboys. Mr. Chidobe Awuzie is a breakout player for Dallas.
You can almost pick any young member of their secondary to have the breakout year because it's all young players
Woods,
on the
Byron
first year of their
Jones.
deal outside of Jeff Heath. I think that Awuzie is going to have a big, big year. He only played 5 full games last season, but when he got on the field and was healthy, he was really good. So I'm excited to see what Awuzie has this year. Assuming he stays healthy, assuming that hamstring injury is no longer a problem for him, I think he is in line to have a big, big season for the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe he's not their true number 1 guy. Maybe Byron Jones does that. Maybe some Jordan Lewis action. But I think that Cheeto, now that he's fully healthy, gets some time to learn the Chris Richard scheme, I think he is in for a monster year for the Cowboys. There are a lot of different guys that could break out for each individual team, but Awuzie is the one that jumps out the most to me. And again, this is a super young secondary.
Not many secondaries excite me, but this one does.
There's some upside here. Now, there is some risk, namely at safety with Jeff Heath, Xavier Woods, and Kevon Frazier, who I like, but I don't think there's a true number 1 guy there. Jordan Lewis, I will continue to slot in the nickel cornerback role, but in OTAs and minicamp, it was actually Anthony Brown that worked ahead of him, which I hate. I think that's a terrible idea. Make Anthony Brown your 4th corner there, and then let Marquez White, Duke Thomas, and others compete for that 5th, maybe 6th cornerback role.
Now the question is, can that secondary make enough plays to send this team to the playoffs?
Cowboys fans really don't like it when I tell them this, but I'm going to continue to say it until I think that there's a reason to change it. I don't think they're going to. And it's not a knock on their talent. It's a knock that they play in the NFC. If they were an AFC team, they'd at least be the 4th best team. Like, I think all the talent is stacked in the NFC right now, at least a unusual portion of it. So I think in the NFC, you can win 10 games, and with the Falcons, Panthers, Saints, Niners, all those teams kind of competing for 2 wildcard spots, Packers, Vikings, even some of their dark horses out there, you can go 10-6 and miss the playoffs. And I think that's what's going to happen for the Cowboys this year.
Yep, could go down.
So I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, for continuing to say that.
All right, let's go to the Eagles here. Sidney Jones, cornerback for Philadelphia. Patrick Robinson is no longer in town, so, some changes going on in that secondary.
Yeah, and Sidney Jones basically redshirted his first year because he blew out his Achilles about a month and a half before the NFL draft. He slipped to round 2 after he was going to be a first-round pick, maybe in a top 15, top 20 guy. I would not be surprised if this year, maybe not in week 1, but maybe later on down the line, he emerges as a starting caliber cornerback for Philadelphia. Now, they wanted to bring back Patrick Robinson this year, and they couldn't do it. He went back to the Saints. So now you got Jalen Mills, Darby, and I think Sidney Jones can be that next guy. Now, maybe he plays outside and someone else moves on the inside like a Jalen Mills or Darby, for example. But I think this is the year that you see a lot more of Sidney Jones. Oh, by the way, I almost put down Derek Barnett as well. But I like
He would have been a good pick, too.
But I like Sidney Jones a lot there. So I think with the Eagles and Jones there, I think he's in really good shape to have a big breakout type year. And again, maybe he starts at the nickel. Maybe Jalen Mills and his elite hair, by the way. Maybe he plays some nickel, but I think there's some versatility and some position flex here. And you've got Rasul Douglas as well. And then Avonte Max, I think long-term, is the Eagles' go-to nickel guy. All
right, that's a look at the Eagles' cornerback depth chart there. Let's go to Washington and take a look at Mr. Jonathan Allen, a former high draft pick.
The Redskins had the NFL's worst run defense last year, and a big reason for that was because Jonathan Allen got hurt early in the year, only played in 5 games, and without him, the run defense was not the same. And the Redskins in particular this year said, hey, we have got to have a better run D. So they bring back Jonathan Allen, and they go and they draft Daron Payne, and now they're in really good shape to have at least a below-average run defense.
They got a lot better. I mean, it's hard to get a lot worse when they were so bad last season. Yeah. So looking at that depth chart, it's intriguing.
It's not that bad if healthy. Now, I don't like Ziggy Hood. He could be cut. I think they need one more defensive end for depth purposes, but they pay big money to Stacey McGee. I think he'll be backup. Maybe he can work in there with Idenas. And then Payne and Settle, I both really liked as potential run stoppers. So I think in reality, you go too deep with the big hog maulers who can help stop the run up front. So I like Allen, I think now fully healthy, he's going to have a breakout year, even though he won't have a bunch of sacks, even though I think in reality he can be a 6-7 sack guy if he played DT as a 4-3 disruptor type, but as a 3-4 defensive end, I don't think he'll put up quite as big of the numbers overall.
All right, so that's the Redskins defensive line there. Jonathan Allen, potential breakout for Washington. Meanwhile, for New York, Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall is no longer there. He is clearly, Shepard is the number 2 guy in town.
Yeah, and obviously Ingram's a tight end, and Saquon Barkley does not count because Barkley is a rookie. I don't count breakout players as first-year guys. I think Evan Ingram, in reality, last year was his big emergence year. I think that Sterling Shepard, though, is going to benefit the most out of anyone not named Eli Manning from the additions the Giants made on offense. Because for a good portion of that year, he was the only Giants receiver, not including Evan Ingram, who was actually good. Like, that Giants receiving depth chart was so decimated by injuries, they were throwing out bums each and every single week that just could not get open. NFL teams just like, oh, we'll just stop Shepard and we'll be fine at receiver. There we go. So he got so much attention. Now all of a sudden, he becomes the 3rd or 4th guy that is going to not draw the most attention. So I think he'll benefit from that. It's the classic example of, yeah, guys will get more targets, but Shepard will become so much more efficient this year with the Giants. I loved him coming out of Oklahoma. I think he's going to have a big, big season. Okay, so Sterling Shepard, potential breakout candidate for the Giants. And we are presented by Man Crates here on NFL Daily. Head to mancrates.com to get the awesome Grill Master Crate this summer, Tom. Of course, everybody's firing up the grills this summer with July 4th just happening and all the parties and all the cookouts. So the Grill Master Crate is for the man who's a cool operator whenever the heat is high, Tom. So perfect. I moved out of my apartment where my grill game was like here because it was an apartment. There's no room for a grill. I'm in my house and the grill game goes up to here.
Sure.
With the crate, it's up to here. The ceiling becomes the roof with this grill crate cam.
Raise the roof. Mancrates.com. Awesome gifts, guys. Love bringing you today's NFL Daily. Is that a 90s saying, by the way, raise the roof? I don't even know. I think I'm going back there a couple of decades.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's do a little listicle recap here in terms of the breakout candidates within the AFC East. And we've got Wise, Parker, Adams, and Dawkins. Which one is the most likely?
I think Jamal Adams. I think he's going to have a big, big year for the Jets.
And then NFC East we go. Awuzie, Jones, Jonathan Allen, and Sterling Shepard.
Allen. I loved him come out. If he stays healthy, even though he's a 3-4 defensive end, I think he's going to have a big, big year for the Redskins.
All right, let's take a look at the Baltimore Ravens now as we check in with the AFC North. Matt Judon, a guy that a lot of people like within the Ravens circles out there, Tom, had a really good year last season and building momentum.
Yeah, I consider guys like Marlon Humphrey and Alex Collins, but the more and more I thought about it, Cam, I feel like we had to do Matt here. Do you have high expectations for me? Is he going to get double-digit sacks this year?
Well, I think
he was pretty close last year, despite a slow start.
And you know, Terrell Suggs had a really good season last year, and to be honest with you, I don't know if he's going to repeat that, which means more pressure on Judon to create more sacks, as you see on your screener, and we'll show you in a matter of seconds here. Terrell Suggs had 11 sacks. Matt Judon was not far behind. I think Judon surpasses T. Sizz and becomes the sack leader for the Ravens.
I am on board with that because I don't know how much more Suggs actually has. He is one of those rare guys that age doesn't seem to really affect him, but at a certain point it will. And I think my big concern for Baltimore is they kind of only go too deep. Now, maybe a Tyus Bowser or Tim Williams can become that next guy, but you do want to see more out of Matt. And hopefully Suggs somehow continues to do what he's been doing so well for so long.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see what happens there with Baltimore. They're trying to improve their pass rush. Let's go to the Bengals. William Jackson, really good year last year, Tom.
You know, maybe some of you guys were thinking it was going to be Joe Mixon. That's not the case. I think it's going to be William Jackson, and I think that Jackson is going to emerge as one of the best cornerbacks in all of the NFL this year. Some great stats courtesy of Pro Football Focus here, Cam. Last year,
really good season.
He allowed 0.38 yards per cover snap last year. So, teams aren't throwing him in, and when they do, he doesn't allow much. And then here was the best part. From weeks 12 to 17, he allowed 0.04 yards per snap. Basically nothing. William Jackson, low-key under the radar last year, might have already been one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Now I think he's going to get the respect and the recognition of that. I think it's going to happen this year. So Jackson is your number one quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Dre Kirkpatrick is your number 2. Darqueze Dennard is your nickel guy there. And there are some guys on that depth chart: Kavari Russell, Phillip Shaw, Wilson. There's some slot and safety kind of back and forth combos there for the Bengals. But Jackson is a guy I am so excited to see as a full-time number 1. He wasn't really that at the beginning of the year. He is going to be incredible this year. His lone interception, I think this is very telling, Cam, came against Aaron Rodgers, and it was a pick 6. So when you do that, I think it's a pretty good sign that you're a darn good cornerback. And I'll always remember this. The Steelers really wanted to take William Jackson, and the Bengals took him 1 pick before. 2 students just to help sure that Pittsburgh couldn't get him. So I know that maybe some of you guys are expecting Joe Mixon. I think will be better this year, but William Jackson, in my eyes, is the true breakout player for the Bengals.
All right, so let's look at Cincinnati. Not a bad secondary as we stand.
I almost feel like cheating because I feel like he could have been a guy that has already emerged as a breakout player.
You know what? I'll allow it. So well done. All right, William Jackson to Cincinnati. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers now and Bud Dupree, Tom.
All right, so Bud Dupree is the next up here, and this kind of falls into the DeVante Parker section with the Steelers. That every year is the year for Bud Dupree. Like, when is he actually going to have his breakout year? Now, I think he was pretty close to last year with 6 sacks. Dupree, though, is switching sides with T.J. Watt at linebacker, but only 14.5 career sacks for the former first-round pick. You need to have more from Bud Dupree. You can't just have the 6 sacks. You need to get him closer to 10. Now, T.J. Watt was really, really good last year for Pittsburgh, but now it's dependent on Dupree becoming the next guy. Can he become at least a more reliable edge rusher? Frankly, Pittsburgh does not have great depth at the outside linebacker spot. They need more talent. They need to have a more impact. They played Dupree and Watt a lot last year. The hope is now that Dupree can go from 4 sacks, 4.5 to 6, and now take the lead to maybe it's 8, maybe it's 7, maybe it's something along those lines. So Dupree does kind of fall into the this is the year, just like DeVante Parker, of can he finally have that true breakout season? I don't know if it's actually ever going to happen for Bud Dupree. And if it's going to happen, it's going to have to be this year, because if it doesn't, then I think Pittsburgh's going to try and move on from him down the road. So we'll see what happens there with Bud Dupree. So 14.5 career sacks for Pittsburgh and Dupree in his NFL career. I am curious to see what happens this year. I hope that the changing of the sides here for Dupree and Watt will help, A, keep T.J. Watt playing really well, and will allow Bud Dupree to take that next step forward and improve on that 6 sack number, so that it's not just 6 sacks, so it becomes 8 or 9 sacks. So Bud Dupree checks in there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll move it now to the Cleveland Browns, and we'll go back to offense here for Cleveland, and we'll give them that talented young tight end, David Njoku. And I cannot wait to see what he does with actual competent quarterback play. Hopefully the coaching staff allows Tyrod Taylor to be that guy. They kind of, I think, stunted DeShone Kizer overall last year. So we saw the flashes at times last year for David Njoku. We saw the 4 TDs, the 32 catches for just under 400 yards. We saw the freak athlete that he is. But my concern here, Cam, is he going to be on the field enough? Because they signed Darren Fells to be that blocking tight end. You might see Njoku be limited based on how much he actually plays on the field.
I still think in terms of raw talent, it's a good selection, Tom. I think he's going to be a fantastic tight end for this team. And you want to talk about a best friend for a rookie quarterback, and that rookie quarterback being Baker Mayfield, who could start at some point. David Njoku, a good tight end, is there.
Look how much Baker Mayfield liked and trusted throwing to Mark Andrews.
Exactly.
Now he gets a better version of Mark Andrews, who's a very similar type tight end.
By the way, PTSD whenever you say Mark Andrews.
I know, that's why I said it.
You suck. Yeah, I mean, it's a good selection here. I mean, the Browns have a wealth of talent on that offense, and it's funny to say that, but when they have Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon, and honestly, you mentioned Fells. I don't know if he's that much competition for Njoku.
In terms of pass catching, no, but my fear is that Njoku, who is still very raw as an actual blocker, my fear is that on first and second down, Fells is going to be the guy out there because they need him to block.
That's fair.
Njoku becomes almost a part-time tight end.
Yep.
And I don't know how much true tight end sets we're actually going to see this year from the Browns.
All right, let's continue along here within the AFC North. And we're going to take a look at, well, actually, we're done with the AFC North. We're going to the NFC side of things with Green Bay and Kevin King.
I didn't have a great feeling as to who to actually pick, by the way, Cam. I really didn't have a great feel because I think for the most part, Green Bay is one of those teams that has a lot of established players overall. They did add several cornerbacks, but they are at least hoping that Kevin King, who frankly I didn't think was all that good in his first year, can take that next step forward. And I think there's a possibility that he's going to get pushed by these guys that Cleveland brought in, or the Green Bay brought in. They brought in Tremont Williams. They brought in Jair Alexander. They bring in Josh Jackson. Kevin King was their first pick in the 2017 draft. It came in round 2 because they traded down. And he's got the size and the length and the speed, but I didn't think the on-field play matched up, and we saw that last year as well. Now it becomes, okay, you've had a full year of an NFL program to learn and develop. Can you take that next step forward? Of the guys in this NFC North section here, I'm not quite as convinced on Kevin King as I am everyone else. So we'll see what happens there.
A lot of players in that secondary for Green Bay. We'll see if Kevin King can emerge there as you take a look at the cornerback depth chart. Tremont Williams, Jair Alexander, as you mentioned, Tom.
Josh Jackson will push in that mix as well. There's almost kind of a four-man deepness here to the Packers depth chart at quarterback. And then Hawkins, Goodson, House I like a lot too. Maybe you see someone like Quentin Rollins end up getting traded as well.
All right, the Chicago Bears are going to be a promising team this year, I think, Tom, mostly because of that defense. Leonard Floyd is a guy to watch out for, potential breakout.
Well, they need him to break out because I think the biggest problem for the Bears overall on defense is the lack of true impact players. And they got one more in Roquan Smith. They have some good guys in the secondary. They need more help when it comes to actually rushing the passer. Akeem Hicks was their leading sack man last year. Leonard Floyd only had 4.5. He needs to double that, frankly. He was an early first-round pick. They need him to be a true #1 edge rusher for that 3-4 scheme because right now it's Sam Ako and Aaron Lynch behind him. And you can look at this list here. McPhee and Houston are gone. So 2 of your top 5 guys are not on the roster anymore, and it's not like they were that great anyway. So you need Floyd to surpass Hicks and be that true #1 edge rusher because if not, I worry about the Bears' defense holding up against better offenses. That's my big concern.
A lot of pressure on Leonard Floyd here to perform this season. All right, let's go to Minnesota here, Tom. This is kind of cheating, but I'll allow it. Dalvin Cook, whatever.
Of course he's going to have his breakout year, though. Last year didn't count. He only played in 4 games.
I guess, but he gave you a little sample of what's to come.
He gave me a really good sample of what's to come, and I loved what I saw. I think that Dalvin Cook is going to have a monster year for Minnesota. We saw the flashes, namely against the Bucs and the Saints, and he was really, really good. But going on beyond that, health is a big question mark for me. I want to see how he comes back from that ACL. And my deep fear, especially for fantasy purposes, is that Latavius Murray is going to vulture touchdowns in the red zone. That's my
a good
fear.
point.
Is that Cook gets them from the 20 to the 10, and then Latavius Murray comes in. So that's my big concern there, Cam.
All right. So
it probably is a little bit cheating.
But it's okay.
But it still counts.
It's all good. All right, Dalvin Cook, potential breakout there for Minnesota. Let's go to Detroit now. And Kenny Golladay, a lot of hype around him last season, and not too bad.
I start to wonder, maybe there's a curse with Detroit Lions offensive first-year players who get hyped up in the preseason and they just aren't as good in the actual games.
Yeah, they should
Amir
stop
Abdullah,
that probably.
Kenny Golladay was last year. Golladay showed some promise. He put up really good yards per catch. He put up 17, 6th most among guys who had at least 16 total catches. So obviously that's a small sample size, but he showed the flashes that you want to see out of him. Now the question is, with Eric Ebron gone, does Golladay get more work? And my fear overall is that there's only so many touches to go around in the Lions offense. When you got to think Blunt and Johnson and maybe Riddick will get plenty of carries if they want to run the ball more, you're not going to cut down Tate and Jones. How many of Eric Ebron's touches does Kenny Golladay get? And isn't it enough to have him truly be a breakout player? It's tough to have 3 impact wide receivers if you're going to run the football more like Detroit wants to do this season.
All right, so Kenny Golladay, a guy to watch for the Detroit Lions. All right, folks, so we went through the AFC North and just did the NFC North. We'll get to the AFC South, but first a word from our friends at Man Crates.
Man Crates, awesome gifts for men in real wooden crates, wrapped in a cocoon of duct tape, or housed in ammo cans that are virtually indestructible. Some gifts he'll get to assemble himself. Some gifts you'll beg him to share, and some gifts are sealed inside layers of rock-solid concrete. Gifts guys love, from grilling gear to old-school video games and more. Man Crates, awesome gifts for men.
All right, so we're taking a look at breakout candidates. We'll start things off here in our recap with the AFC East. Wise, Parker, Adams, Dion Dawkins with the Buffalo Bills. You got Awuzie with the Dallas Cowboys, Sidney Jones, Jonathan Allen, Sterling Shepard, Matt Judon, William Jackson, Bud Dupree, David Njoku with the Browns, and then the NFC North, Kevin King, Leonard Floyd, Dalvin Cook, and Kenny Golladay, Tom. All right, let's go to the AFC South, my friend, and talk about the Tennessee Titans. Corey Davis, A lot of talent.
This is probably the one I feel most confident about because he is going to be so much better than what he was last year. He looked good in OTAs and minicamp. He was limited by injuries last year. He didn't put up great numbers. And I think most importantly, the new offensive scheme is going to be essential for Marcus Mariota and Corey Davis in that entire offense. It's going to drastically change how successful they are at moving the football. I think Corey Davis, he was not great last year, in part because of injuries. We saw some flashes. He's going to have a big, big year. I think he's going to be, if not the Titans' leading receiver, at least their number 2, right alongside Delaney Walker.
Yep. Eric Decker no longer there either, so that opens up opportunities.
Give him all of Eric Decker's yards and receptions plus more touchdowns.
All right, Corey Davis. With the Tennessee Titans, potential breakout there. How about Jacksonville, Myles Jack?
So this is not the first time they've tried this, but Myles Jack is now going to move from strong side linebacker to full-time middle linebacker. They tried that at the start of last year, and the preseason they said, you know what, nope, we're not going to do this. Posluszny go back to middle, Myles stay at the Sam spot, and then on nickel downs come in and play alongside Telvin Smith. That's how he ranks second in tackles. Now he is the full-time middle linebacker. And I'm curious to see how he fares without Paul Posluszny, who has long been, I think, one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL. You got Telvin Smith, you got Myles Jack. That's a really good 1-2 punch at linebacker. How they fare at strong linebacker with some undersized guys, they're like Blair Brown, I'm not so sure. But I think that Myles Jack is fully recovered from that knee injury he had near the end of his time at UCLA. I think he's going to have a big year and emerge as one of the best middle linebackers in the entirety of the NFL.
A lot of talent on that defense for Jacksonville. Let's go to Indianapolis now. Talk about a talented player. Malik Hooker, he just missed a lot of games.
Is this cheating too?
Somewhat.
Like this kind of falls, I guess, into that Dalvin Cook category.
It does, but he's not a brand name like Dalvin Cook.
That's true, but I love Malik Hooker. I think he's going to be one of the best free safeties in the NFL by the time this year is over, if he's healthy. Now, he's not the greatest in run support, but he missed a good chunk of last year's games, and he's still tied for the team league in interceptions. This dude makes plays on the ball. Everyone take a drink because his ball skills are elite. I love Malik Hooker. I think he's going to have a massive year for the Colts. He'll be one of the focal points of a young defense that is still rebuilding and getting there.
All right, Malik Hooker with the Indianapolis Colts, perhaps a bright spot for a depth chart overall that just is not very good. Yeah. But let's go to Houston now. Deshaun Watson.
Is this cheating too?
Yeah, we're getting to cheating territory again.
Okay.
But
still, it's Deshaun Watson.
It's
the same category. Like, if you miss a lot of time, then you don't really have a true breakout year the previous year. So I think with Deshaun Watson, if he stays on the field for all 16 games, I think he'll put up really good numbers. I want to see him cut down on the interceptions a little bit. The flashes have always been there for Watson last year. We saw what he could do. We saw how much better that team was with him on the field. And he's got plenty of guys to throw to. He's got Will Fuller. He's got Hopkins. Kiki Cutie's drawing some buzz. Bruce Ellington, Lamar Miller, Deonta Foreman. No real tight end. So the skill pieces are there, but Cam, the offensive line, I'm really worried about it.
It's pretty pukey.
Like, my nightmare scenario for Deshaun Watson is that this offensive line gets him killed and he ends up being RG3 2.0.
Oh, God, Tom, don't say that.
I know. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is my nightmare scenario. That Deshaun Watson just gets hurt again. The knee, which he's had surgery on multiple times already, gets hurt again there. The offensive line's bad in Houston. Like, we make fun of Seattle. Seattle has Houston's best offensive lineman in Dwayne Brown. So I'm just concerned about it.
I think Seattle, Houston, and the Jets are all competing for the worst offensive
Bills
line.
could be down there too.
Yeah, Bills could be there as well. All right, Deshaun Watson, potential top 10 quarterback next year. We'll see.
We can revisit this at the end of the year, but right now the answer is no because he has to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's a factor.
All right, let's go to the NFC South and talk about the Atlanta Falcons. And we've got Takk McKinley.
He had his little mini breakout down the stretch last year. 5 sacks in Atlanta's last 7 games. He and Vic Beasley is a really nice 1-2 punch. Now, yes, they lose Adrian Claiborne with his super deceptive sack totals from last year because he made Chaz Green and the rest of that Cowboys offensive line and Byron Bell look like turnstiles. He just abused non-existing tackles in those games. But I think that Takk McKinley this year will lead Atlanta in sacks. He's a really good player, a young, talented player with some good burst off the edge. Played out of position early in his career at UCLA. Now with the Falcons, he's playing in the perfect scheme for him. I think the 5 sacks in 7 games, you could see him double that and do, let's just say, 10 sacks total this year.
All right, let's talk about the Bucs now. Chris Godwin has been getting a lot of buzz out of camp, Tom.
I got some Bucs people that I trust, and they have been hyping up Chris Godwin all offseason. So I think, yeah, you got Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson and I guess Adam Humphries still counts as a person and a player. Chris Godwin is going to have a big year. I think he is going to take a lot of Adam Humphries' touches away from him, maybe some Deshaun Jackson, but I think you're going to see some Godwin Evans on the outside. Maybe you see some more Deshaun Jackson in the slot this year.
Yeah.
I think that's some fun offense. So this is what bothers me so much about the Bucs. They've got all these fun pieces that should be good together.
They just don't
and
work.
Yet the end result just doesn't work.
You want to know why? Dirk Cutter.
Dirk Cutter. Okay, we're all in agreement. Cool, moving on.
All right, let's go to the Panthers here. Christian McCaffrey. Jonathan Stewart is no more, Tom.
Yeah, I thought about Curtis Samuel and McCaffrey. Almost feels like cheating, but he didn't have 200 touches last year, and that's going to change this season.
Oh, no doubt.
And yeah, they brought in C.J. Anderson. They have Cameron Artis-Payne too. I think you're going to see Christian McCaffrey get a much, much larger workload this year for Carolina. He is going to be a focal point of this offense. He's going to get a ton of touches both on the ground and through the air. Now, I think in reality, what you'll see happen is that Carolina will do what they can to make sure that McCaffrey doesn't have too many touches. I don't think you're going to see a true, massive year for a true Lev Bell type season for McCaffrey. He's not going to be 400 touch type guy, but he's going to get a lot. I think that's going to do really well for him in terms of the receiving game and the ground game. I'm excited to see how he fares. Of course, I do have some doubts about Norv Turner at this point in his NFL career as a coach.
Yep, new offensive coordinator there for Carolina. Let's go to New Orleans and Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle for the Saints.
He has not been the uber disruptive guy I saw at Louisville when he had 26.5 tackles for loss and 14 sacks in his last 2 years. Since he joined the Saints, he's had 6 sacks and we'll call it 9 TFLs to match it up better with the college type counting numbers there. So the good news is for the Saints is that I think their defensive line is going to be pretty darn good this year. Now, there are some question marks. I don't know how confident I feel about the other DT spot with Onmata and Davison and Jay Bromley. And I put Okafor as a starter for now. I think he starts on first, second down. Davenport takes over by the end of the year. But there's some good talent on this defensive line. I just need to see Rankins become one of the top 4-3 defensive tackles like I thought he could be coming out of Louisville. He hasn't taken that big step forward yet.
All right, so there you go. Sheldon Rankins with the New Orleans Saints. Friendly reminder, guys, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Website is youtube.com/chatsportstv. We're going for 100,000 subscribers.
The big number.
The big number.
Got 50K, now we're going to 100K. Why go for the small one? I think we'll hit 57K probably by the end of the night if recent growth has been any indication. But 100K is next up, folks.
All right, that's the goal. All right, let's go to the AFC West and talk about the Oakland Raiders. Gareon Conley as a potential breakout candidate.
The big key for him, he's just got to stay on the field, man. He had the shin injury all last year that was constantly nagging at him. Played only 92 snaps last year, which is way too low for a guy that the Raiders were hoping was going to be an impact corner almost instantly. And this entire secondary cam at cornerback has been drastically changed.
Revamped.
Amerson, Sean Smith, and TJ Carey are gone. Melvin, Worley, and Sharice Wright, Leon Hall, Nick Nelson, they are now in. So this is a very, very different Raiders secondary. And their hope is that Gareon Conley very quickly becomes that #1 cornerback for them. Now, there's some other guys on there. I'm curious to see how the nickel battle works out. But Conley is the guy Oakland needs to emerge as, hey, this is our long-term #1 quarterback. Because if not, Melvin, Worley, Sharice Wright, and Leon Hall, that's not going to work.
Not a lot of confidence.
That's just not going to work.
All right, Conley there for the Raiders. Let's go to the Chiefs here. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback in town now, the starter for Week 1.
Too obvious?
It's obvious, but hey, I mean, there are some doubters out there.
And I actually get it because he didn't look all that great in minicamps and OTAs per the reports coming out of Kansas City. And the expectations are really high. I think with the reality, what we're going to see this year is you're going to see some unbelievable Patrick Mahomes plays. You're going to go, wow, how did he do that? And then you're going to go, wow, why did you do that? There's going to be some inconsistency. There's going to be some ups and downs for Mahomes. Don't insult Mahomes like that, please,
Cam.
Cam.
An insult.
Yes, it is. Absolutely is. The skill guys are there around Mahomes, but I think in year 1, you're going to see a little bit of a drop-off from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. But long-term, I think Mahomes went to a great landing spot for him. I think he's going to be really good for Kansas City. It just might take a little bit more time than Chiefs fans want.
All right, and then let's take a look at the Denver Broncos. Justin Simmons, the safety back there.
Like him out of BC. Producer Harris is a big fan as well. Part of the reason Denver felt okay saying goodbye to TJ Ward was because they really like Justin Simmons. Hopefully he makes that worthwhile, because that defense needs an impact safety. I don't think Simmons was really that guy last year. The flashes were there, but Denver has high hopes for him alongside Darian Stewart, alongside Sua Cravens and Will Parks. I think Cravens Parks can play that dime linebacker role, but Simmons hopefully takes a big leap forward this year, Cam.
All right, keep an eye on him there. And then finally in the AFC West with the Chargers, Mr. Mike Williams himself, injury-riddled season last year.
You know, I loved him coming out of Clemson, but he was hurt pretty much all last year. He had one start. He never got on the same page as Rivers. And remember, Chargers lost Hunter Henry, and there's a pretty big drop-off after the first guy in Keenan Allen to the rest of those guys in terms of catches outside of Melvin Gordon, but he's a halfback. Does he even really count? Not really. So I think in reality, you want to see Mike Williams get a lot of the Tyrell Williams work, because I think Mike is the more talented one, but Terrell was one who was healthy last year. So we'll see how Mike Williams fares. I have high expectations for him. I liked him more than Corey Davis coming out, even though it was pretty close for me. I think Williams could be a #1 receiver in the NFL, but he's got to actually stay on the field.
That's the big-time question mark for him.
For a lot of these guys, actually.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike Williams is there for the Chargers. Let's go to the NFC West and take a look at the San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right, producer Harris said this didn't count because his breakout year was last year. I said it did, Cam. You're the host of the 49ers Report here. Cast the deciding vote.
Sample size matters. We didn't have the sample size last year. I allow it. All right? I allow it. It's good.
Yeah, he got paid a lot. He played 5 games last year.
But
he's going to have his breakout year this year because he'll play all 16.
You have in the notes as well McKinnon or Kittle would make sense.
Or Thomas or Colbert or Kel Witherspoon. The common theme there is that, hey, there are a lot of young talent players on this Niners roster. I think that this is the year that Jimmy G looks like the quarterback everyone thinks he is, because it's been a small sample size. You can't base it off of, half a season. You got to see the full year. I think this year he's going to have the big breakout year. So by the end of the year, yes, I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback.
I agree. All right, let's go to Arizona now. Buda Baker, the safety back there. Well, Honey Badger's no longer.
Technically, he was a Pro Bowler, so he shouldn't count, right? It was special teams. That doesn't count as a real Pro Bowler, Cam. So I think he counts.
Tell that to Matthew Slater.
Good point. Good point. But Baker has higher upside than a only special teams guy in Matthew Slater. So Tyrann Mathieu leaves. Now it's Buda Baker starting to say, hey, you got to kind of be our #2 defensive back outside of Patrick Peterson, because frankly, Cam, that's not great. I mean, I like Antoine Bethea.
He's a good veteran.
Jamar Taylor's fine, but they go 2 deep at safety and they go 2.5 deep at corner.
Yeah.
They're thin. I'm concerned about that. So they need Buda Baker to be that impact guy back there.
All right, let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. Fantastic, exciting secondary. We're looking at the linebacker, Corey Littleton, though.
Well, they got all these guys that are kind of proven. Brandon Cooks and Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib. Their one big question mark for me, outside of maybe the offensive line, is that inside linebacker. They lost Alec Ogletree. They traded him away. And Corey Littleton is the guy right now that's in line to start, even though he only played 278 snaps last year. The good news is Littleton will look a lot better than he might actually be, because the rest of that defense is stacked. Yeah. So they'll be fine.
Yeah, no pressure on these linebackers.
No.
They have a big-time luxury to be a linebacker for the Los Angeles
Playing
Rams.
behind Sue and Aaron Donald.
And in between with that secondary there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Littleton with the Rams. Let's take a look at the Seahawks. Mr. Shaquille Griffin here, Tom.
He is now going to be the left cornerback. And that's important in Seattle's scheme because that's where the #1 guy plays. He was the right cornerback last year. He is now going to get the #1 receivers week in and week out, which he didn't always get last year because of Sherman's injury. And they need him because this cornerback depth chart, Cam, I don't like it.
It ain't the Legion of Boom anymore.
The Legion of Boom is dead.
Yeah.
It is dead. We have sung its praises. The funeral has happened. It's Shaquille Griffin, a washed-up Byron Maxwell, a Justin Coleman that I like as a nickel, and then cast-offs in Dante Johnson, and maybe swing for the fences flyers in Nico Thorpe and Trey Flowers and Mike Tyson. So Shaquille Griffin is now the focal point of that Seahawks secondary, depending on what happens with Earl Thomas, of course.
Of course, yes. So Griffin's there as a potential breakout for the Seattle Seahawks. We've gone through all 32 teams. Let's go through all the names here to wrap things up on the show. For AFC East, we got Wise, Parker, Adams, and Dion Dawkins with the Buffalo Bills.
I like Adams the most out of that group.
Yep. NFC East here, we've got The Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as the Redskins and Giants going with Awuzie, Jones, Allen, and Shepard.
I like all 4 of those guys, but Jonathan Allen is my guy. I've always liked him since he came out of Alabama. I think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NFL.
And then the AFC North, Matt Judon, William Jackson, Bud Dupree, and David Njoku.
William Jackson is that guy on that list that I'm watching the most. He may have already had his breakout year last year, but I think this is the year he gets the recognition as one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL.
Then the NFC North, Kevin King, Leonard Floyd, Dalvin Cook, Kenny Golladay.
You say Dalvin Cook is cheating. I don't think so. He is going to have a monster year for Minnesota, if he's healthy.
AFC South we go, Corey Davis, Myles Jack, Malik Hooker, and Deshaun Watson.
All really good choices. I feel the most confident, strangely enough, about Corey Davis. I am a big fan of Tennessee's changes. I think they're going to benefit Davis in a massive way.
And then NFC South, McKinley, Godwin, McCaffrey, and Sheldon Rankins.
Sign me up for McKinley. I think he's going to show the consistency we saw late in the year last year. He's going to emerge as a borderline double-digit sack machine for Atlanta.
And then the AFC West, we got Conley, Mahomes, Simmons, and Williams there.
Mahomes is almost too obvious. If Gareon Conley is healthy, he will emerge as the Oakland Raiders' #1 quarterback, and man, do they need it.
Then Garoppolo, it's Baker, it's Littleton, and Griffin there in the NFC West. Those are your breakout candidates across the National Football League.